But the BJP has always had a problem with him because he believes in constitution. He's a secular man, says what he speaks his mind. The BJP's Pune president has proudly claimed to have engineered the attack on Twitter. So it's not like you can imagine the kind of impunity that they enjoy. So there's always been a threat perception that we've sort of lived with. But this one was different because it seemed clearly state-backed. The car was attacked 4 or 5 times. So BJP had planted their members at regular intervals during that 3 or 4 kilometer span. When the car was attacked, the police couldn't control the mob, which is quite surprising because everybody knew that something could happen. The journalists knew that something's bound to happen. Police knew something's bound to happen. And yet they were caught so off guard, which begs the question if they were in on it. His videos have been going particularly viral. And what I've noticed with the BJP is that whenever someone goes viral in regional languages and reaches out to the masses, that's when they get a little nervous.
On 10th of February, noted journalist Nikhil Waghle was attacked by a mob in Pune even as he was on his way to an event. All this happened in police protection. Joining me now is his son and independent journalist MN Parth. Parth, thank you for speaking to us.
Tell us what is the status of the FIR? Have they filed it and what are the charges?
They filed an FIR against my father as well as the people who attacked him. There's an FIR against him for spreading religious enmity for a tweet that he made when L.K. Advani was conferred the Bharat Ratna. And then there's another FIR against him for supposedly not regarding the police notice, or the police had asked him. Apparently, the police had asked him to not go to the event, and he still went. So there's an FIR against him for that. And then there's been an FIR against those who attacked him, but they have left the attempt to murder charge out of it, and the only charges that find mention in those in the FIR are rioting and damage to property. But if you see the video, you can clearly see that they wanted to drag him out, and you can clearly hear them saying, drag him out of the car. So I think attempt to murder should have been there, but it's not. And they're going to go to court against that, I think. Then there was an event on 9th of February in the evening, which it was basically a public meeting that my father, Vishwambar Chaudhary, who's a social activist, and Asim Sarode, who's a lawyer. Most of the meetings have been held by Vishwambar and Asim about constitution and secular principles and so on and so forth. So when the BJP found out that there's an event or public meeting happening in Pune, they said that we won't let this happen. And they threatened him against holding it. And they told him to, if the meeting goes ahead, we will disrupt it. It was clearly a threat given to the speakers by the BJP members. Instead of sort of taking any preventive action against those who were threatening to disrupt a public meeting, which was going to be held in an auditorium, so there was no way it could have led to a law and order situation. Instead of sort of taking any preventive measures against those who threatened to disrupt it, what they did was when my father reached Asim's house on the afternoon of 9th February, they held him and Vishwambar and Asim in a bit of a house arrest for 3 or 4 hours and didn't let them go to the event. They kept telling them to, they kept telling him to speak over video conferencing. They said that, you will be speaking, you will be saying provocative things and creating a law and order situation and so on and so forth. So they kept sort of coming up with excuses to not let him go. Eventually, my father sort of lost his cool, had a fight with them, and said, I'm going to the meeting. It's my right to speak at a public meeting. And it's your responsibility to protect me because I'm not the one creating a law and order situation. And those who are threatening to create a law and order situation should be held accountable. The police basically told him that you'd be saying provocative things, so don't go, and so on and so forth. And they held him in Asim's house for about 3.5 hours. And eventually my father sort of lost it and had a fight with the cops. And he said that it's your responsibility to protect me. I'm not the one creating a law and order situation. And you should take preventive action against those who have threatened to disrupt the meeting. So it's your responsibility to protect me. So he basically just stormed off and got in the car. And that's when basically there were 40 people from the special branch waiting downstairs. and that's when the police realized that he's not going to listen to them. And then in Asim's friend's car, the three of them sat at the back. My father, Asim, and Vishwambar. They sat at the back. Asim's associate sat in the front, and there was a political activist from Pune who was driving the car. Uh, Now, normally when there's a police escort or a protection, there's a police car in front of the vehicle that is supposed to be protected, and then there's a police vehicle behind the vehicle that's supposed to be protected. In this case, there was just the police vehicle only followed the car, so the attackers could attack the car from the front. And when the car was attacked, the police couldn't control the mob, which is quite surprising because so everybody knew that there something could happen. I mean, even though people couldn't predict the magnitude or the scale of the attack, uh, it was the journalists knew that something's bound to happen. Police knew something's bound to happen, and yet they were caught so off guard, which begs the question if they were in on it. The only reason why the three of them survived is because of the activists on the ground who sort of risked their lives to protect the vehicle, and the driver who kept driving in spite of the car getting hit. I mean, he even took detours, and he showed that presence of mind to make sure that the three got to the event. And it's also important to note that the distance from Asim's house to the auditorium where the public meeting was supposed to be held is barely 3 or 4 kilometers. And in that space of 3 or 4 kilometers, the car was attacked 4 or 5 times. So BJP had planted their members at regular intervals during that uh, 3 or 4 kilometer span.
So how did
And
they know that this is the route that your father and his associates will take? Was that an
it,
obvious thing, or
it was probably an obvious thing. It must have been an obvious thing because Pune is a relatively it's not as huge as Bombay is, where you can go to one place through three different routes. They took the most obvious route that was supposed to be taken, and that's how they were attacked. But there was a police vehicle behind the car, behind their car when they started towards the auditorium, and the police control the mob even uh, it couldn't control the mob at all actually. You could see that the only reason why the three of them survived was because of the political activists who risked their own lives to protect the three of them.
you mentioned that there were about 40 police personnel from the special branch. How many of them accompanied your father's car when he was en route?
There were a couple of vehicles behind him, behind their vehicle. That's what we know. I don't know how many actually stepped out, intervened, or tried to. It's very difficult because they were also in civil dress. So it's difficult to figure out how many of them were actually on the ground. There were some who tried to protect, but clearly they were overpowered by the mob, and they were outnumbered by the mob. So they couldn't do anything about it. And you could clearly say that if they were not complicit, they were clearly unprepared for an attack like that.
Right. This isn't the first time that your father has faced an attack. I think around 6 times in his career he has faced attacks. How was this time different from the previous ones?
Well, you're right. I mean, the first attack happened in 1979, and ever since then, I mean, I was born in 1991. The riots, Mumbai riots, happened in 92, 93, and ever since then, there's always been a threat perception that we've lived with. I remember going to school at the age of 5 or 6. With two policemen used to accompany me because there were threats to my life as well. We used to get calls that said, we know where your son goes to school, he may not come home one day from school and stuff like that. So police used to drop me to school when I was 5 or 6 years old, and my mother had categorically told my teachers to not trust me with anybody else. Only 2 or 3 people were authorized to pick me up from school. Uh, that was the 90s. Our offices were attacked, vehicles, car was attacked by Shiv Sena, Bal Thakre's people during the mid 90s. Then there were the early 2000s. I think I was 13 or 14 years old when Narayan Rane's people uh, almost stoned him to death in when he was traveling through Konkan, and it was an 80-year-old woman who saved his life back then. He was on the ground, and they were about to stone him to death when she sort of walking with a cane. She sort of jumped in between the mob and my father and said that whatever you want to do to him, do it to me first. And that's when the mob sort of dissipated. And then there was a threat from Sanatan Sanstha. Uh, After Govind Pansari was murdered, the alleged shooter was, I think his phone was tapped, and he's heard saying that, okay, something along the lines of, okay, Pansari is out of the way, now what about Nikhil Waghle? So that happened. Then there was also an attack on IBN Lokmat when he was the editor in chief of that channel. So there's always been a threat perception that we've sort of lived with. But this one was different because it seemed clearly state backed, and it was uh, the police, just their role was just mystifying. It was, you could clearly see that the police did not do what they were supposed to do. In other in earlier attacks, there was some sort of state machinery that helped, that stepped in. But this was actually it was a miracle that they came out alive of it, because they were in the car when the cars were being smashed with hockey sticks, iron rods. They were also wearing these spikes on their uh, knuckles, so they could break the glass. They broke the windshield from behind, and then they sort of inserted hockey sticks and iron rods from that broken window to sort of hit them on their heads. It was, I mean, it was quite a miracle that they came out relatively unhurt of it.
We've seen the statement that your father has issued, but I want to know how he's doing physically, and obviously the family must be shaken as well.
He's fine. I mean, he's as I said, he's kind of used to it. He's angry and also charged. Actually, he wants to now speak more about it, and so on and so forth. So he doesn't seem too deterred right now. But of course, it's a bit of a shock that one has to process. He was tired when he got back home. The same night he came back home in police protection only, and he was extremely tired. The next, and a couple of days since then have been sort of chaotic because everyone's sort of coming in to meet him and ask him how he's doing. But he's fine. He needs to rest a bit more than he is right now. But I'm sure he'll be fine in a couple of days.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you plan to go to court, or your father plans to go to court against their fire against him, and also the charges or the lack of it against those who attacked him. So, what are they mulling at this point? Apart from attempt to murder, is there anything else that you want to take up?
I'm not clear on the details yet because they are yet to discuss it within themselves. They've only had preliminary conversations about how the FIR does not mention attempt to murder when it clearly looked like a murderous attack, or when it was clearly a murderous attack. So they've had a conversation about it and the fact that the attempt to murder is missing from it, and they want to take it up. So how exactly are they going to do it is the nitty gritties have to be figured out, and I think Asim Sarode will handle it obviously because he's a well-known lawyer in Pune. So he will be sort of advising my father as well because he was also the victim of the attack. So I think they'll take it up soon.
Okay. So the BJP in Pune, the Pune unit of BJP had written a letter to the police before the event saying that your father should not be allowed to speak. Is this the first time something like this has happened, and it's happened from, a district, an office bearer of the ruling party?
Well, the BJP has always had a problem with him because I mean he believes in constitution. He's a secular man, says what he speaks his mind, and he's always been a critic of the government, regardless of who's been in power. But his ideology is clearly secular. So the BJP doesn't like him. Uh, the BJP's Pune president has proudly claimed to have engineered the attack on Twitter. So it's not like they are, you can imagine the kind of impunity that they enjoy. But I don't think it's the first time someone from the BJP has had a problem with him. There've been several attacks, several in social media. The trolling it constantly happens. But yeah, this particular one was quite severe. I don't think the intensity of it has been the same. What you saw
Have there been
trying to
any
portray.
arrests so far? Have any of those, because it's caught on camera, it's very easy to identify the people who were actually around. So what is the status?
So the night of the attack, the police arrested 26 or 29 people. What's happened to them is I'm not sure what has happened to them yet. Are they still in jail or are they out on bail? But yeah, the night this happened, they detained or arrested some 26 or 29 people.
Right. Before I let you go, Parth, I want to ask you what kind of support, what kind of response have you gotten from both the fraternity and even maybe other political parties, the civil society? How have they reached out to your father, offered any help?
Yeah, I mean, of course, all the journalist bodies have condemned it. All of those who stand for freedom of speech and journalistic freedom have condemned it, have reached out to him, have reached out to me. I've been getting calls from all over Maharashtra. Those who can't reach out to him have offered to speak to him through me. Of course, political parties from, Uddhav Thackeray, Sharad Pawar, their factions and Congress, they have offered their support. So anyone who's not aligned with BJP's ideology has condemned the attack. And,
nothing from the BJP, the government, chief minister, deputy chief minister, nothing from their side.
Devendra Fadnavis said that the attack is condemnable, but but Waghle doesn't speak objectively or something like that. He said that. Narayan Rane has actually said something along the lines, "Oh, of course he was beaten up. There's no doubt about that." So that kind of response that's come from the state, and the others have condemned it. I've been getting calls from different corners of Maharashtra, largely because I think the tweet was just an excuse. The fact is that he's been running his own YouTube channel for the past year or so, but the last 3 or 4 months have, his videos have been going particularly viral. And what I've noticed with the BJP is that whenever someone goes viral in regional languages and reaches out to the masses, that's when they get a little nervous. So every time someone, if you look at any journalist, any activist or rationalist who's been personally attacked or targeted, most of them would be writing in regional languages because they are the ones who reach out to the masses. I mean, Gauri Lankesh, Kalburgi, Dabholkar, Pansare, Shashikant Warishe, who was killed a year ago in Konkan. Most of them have been writing in Marathi or Kannada, and they're not predominantly English language journalists. So I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to target him, because just before the Pune public meeting, the three of them had held a public meeting in a place called Sinnar, which is not too far from Nashik, and that also was a massive public meeting. It was, I think, attended by 3 or 4 thousand people. His videos have been going quite viral on YouTube. So that seems to be the reason why they've targeted him.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Take care of yourself, and I hope your father and your family continue to remain safe. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.